Hello everyone, I'm so glad you could make it today. This, as always, is Matthew Curry, your friendly neighborhood astrologer, and this is Conquer the Universe with Astrology. In a few minutes, I'll be talking to my guest, Allie Lane. I'm really looking forward to that. An interesting guest with an interesting birth chart and an interesting story. Before that, though, let's look at the big aspect hovering over the next few days. It's exact on Saturday, but it's kicking in now, and it will be in effect until roughly the middle of next week, and that is Venus trine Saturn. Both planets are really strongly placed right now. Saturn, as it has been for a while now, is in Capricorn, and Venus is in Taurus, and they're both in the signs that they rule, which in theory, at least, makes them particularly strong. And the trine aspect is a really nice, easy-flowing kind of energy. So when you put the two of those together, what you get is that the things that are ruled by Venus, love, sugary food, money, that sort of thing, the stuff you like, all of that is working very nicely with structure and order and limitations and all the stuff that Saturn rules that, may not sound like fun, but they're absolutely necessary. As I sometimes tell people, Saturn rules bones. And if you think about it, without bones, you'd just be a useless puddle on the floor. Venus trine Saturn is a real opportunity to get it together with your love life, to bring some structure and sense and order to it, maybe get to work on a diet or a health routine, and maybe get a handle on your budget, something like that. It's always nice when, quite often when you're looking at the aspects for a week, there's like a nasty square or something like that, and, everyone loves a good panic now and again. But this week, it's kind of constructive, so do go out of your way to take advantage of it and just generally play nice with others, okay? Today, my guest is Allie Lane. She is a writer, an actor, a comedian, an entertainer, founder of a countrywide event entertainment company, and she's also someone I've met in person. She's got a fascinating story to tell, well worth a listen. And by the way, this is a pre-recorded phone call. I could have easily edited this thing to make myself look better, but with one of the first questions I ask her, interesting lesson to those of you who are astrologers or want to become astrologers is that I fell into kind of a cliched trap. I mean, astrology, there's certain cliches going for it, like, I don't know, if you have Venus square Uranus in your birth chart, you're a sex maniac or something. These cliches, they're often true, but not always, and you've always got to be careful that you don't let that sort of thing color your interpretation. Anyway, early on here, if you're paying attention, I fell into a trap about Moon in Scorpio. And this is kind of ironic, because I spent a lot of time talking about how Moon in Scorpio is a much better placement than you've heard, or Moon in Capricorn, or Venus in Virgo, or one of those so-called debilitated placements. Let's be honest here, not everyone with a perfectly placed Mars is always a saint, and one with a terribly aspected Mars is not always a sinner. And I fell into a mistake about Moon in Scorpio in the 12th house, and see if you can catch it. But other than that, I was doing my job. Anyway, here's my conversation with Allie Lane. Hi, Allie. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Not bad overall. My understanding is, though, that you've had worse days in the past.
I have.
First of all, just tell us a little about yourself, who you are and what you do, and what's driving that thing.
So my name's Allie Lane, and I'm an actor and comedian and author and professional speaker.
Great.
And and that's a little bit about me, and I just, my latest thing that I'm doing right now is I've just finished my second book that's available all in 33,000 different booksellers online and across Canada in different Indigo and Chapter stores.
Wait a second. This thing that I'm sitting here holding in my hand right now, see, you can hear it. I'm waving. This is your second book?
It's my second book. Yes.
What was the first one?
My first book was just sort of a comedy how-to manual. about I do a lot of teaching, writing. So this one was a how-to on how to write a murder mystery.
And, fascinating.
Yeah.
So, well, okay, everyone's got a shopping list now after they're listening to this.
Yeah.
So I should explain to the audience, I met you once in person at a Christmas party a few years ago, and the subject of what I do for a living came up, and I managed, despite being fairly inebriated, I managed to pull up your chart, and I was, if you recall, kind of stunned by your currently not being dead. How do I put that? Did I phrase that properly?
Sure.
I mean, you're not now, so you weren't then.
Yeah.
What you had was like a very bad Saturn transit. In astrology, Saturn usually comes with all sorts of complications and stuff like that. And what you were going through a few years ago was transiting Saturn square your natal Saturn, and it was square Venus, which is the ruler of your sixth house, which is your health. So long story short, tell us about that. What happened?
I was diagnosed with breast cancer and also a very rare form of a blood disorder called cyclical neutropenia, which means my white blood cell count, which is the count that you kind of need to fight off infections, would go below zero for no reason. So while I was going through chemotherapy, if I was to catch a common cold or something that any normal person was to catch, I had nothing to fight it off. So there was certain instances where I had to be kept in quarantine because if I caught a cold, I could die.
Oh, you're doing better now, obviously.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing amazing.
Okay. One thing I want to ask you about that, and remind everyone that I'm not a medical professional.
Mm-hmm.
This was all tripped off by, like I said, a really difficult Saturn transit to your natal Saturn and your natal Venus. There was another transit happening at the time with transiting Neptune square your Venus and also square your Saturn. Now, that started to kick in back then. It's still in effect now. So even though I'm thinking, looking at your transits, you're out of the woods, right?
Yes.
Hasn't there been anything ongoing, like changing with your health for the last year or two? Like if you started, I don't know, lifting weights or something, I don't know.
Like my physical health?
Yeah. Or, mentally, how you doing?
Yeah, I think my mental health is definitely like a lot better, but I've definitely changed my attitude.
Okay.
But tell me, what's going on?
Well, in this case, it kind of, that particular Neptune transit is, if you're the type who's really prone to doing things like praying and meditating and all that sort of thing, and trying to maintain a positive mental attitude. Ugh, I hate that phrase. Is that unusually negative of me to say I hate positive mental attitude? I guess. What I'm saying is that if you're the kind of person who does that sort of thing, you probably will get more benefit out of it than the average person would doing the same thing now.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not going to be one of those guys who's going to tell you to go off and talk to your spirit guides or something because, I don't know. But not to pick on anyone who does, okay? I'm just saying that's not everyone's bag, okay? Now, one thing that's kind of interesting here is being, among other things, I think it's fair to call you a comedian.
Yeah.
I've read a couple of psychological profiles of comedians in general. And the three things that come up over and over again is above average intelligence, good verbal skills, and depression. Now,
interesting.
Let's take a moment to talk about that third one, because so far I'm amused in your communicating, okay? But in your particular birth chart, full disclosure, you're a Capricorn. Capricorns are not always as mopey as, the book makes them sound. But you've got Moon in Scorpio, Moon at 0 degrees Scorpio, and I find that really interesting because that is an intensely emotional placement. And you've got both Moon and Mars in Scorpio at opposite ends of the sign in the 12th house. Are you familiar with Freud's theory that humor is just redirected aggression?
No.
Okay. Well, now that I've mentioned
I am not.
and now that I've given people the astrological code phrase, that is Moon and Mars in Scorpio in the 12th house, which is kind of, among other things, like I said, it's very emotional, but it's also... Tell us about this, okay? How unhappy are you? Like, do you feel you're driven more by your happiness or your unhappiness?
I don't think I'm unhappy at all.
Okay.
I think that I use my humor to get through everything.
Okay.
So I kind of like see the bright side in everything, but it's not forced. Like I truly believe in it. Like I can just kind of look for the positive, which I turn that into humor in absolutely any situation. But I've always been that way. But I really don't believe I'm not one of those people that are like, think positive and good things will come. I don't have to force it. I just honestly just think that. But nothing drives me more crazy than people are like, just think positive, because I think that's impossible. You can't just think positive. I think you either have to be a positive person or you're not a positive person.
I think so. And I think this is, first of all, a really, really nice handling of your 12th house there. And well played with the 12th house there. It also, by the way, that placement also gives you a fair amount of creative, artistic ability, and, well, there you go, okay? Also, with just the way your mind works and the way you communicate, your third house is ruled by Uranus. Was there anything unusual about your early speech development? No, that's another question.
Yes, actually there was. So I actually was painfully shy up until about the 3rd grade. So bad that whenever there was like a school outing or field trip, I had to stay at home. I was terrified of people and I was terrified to communicate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you've overcome that, obviously.
Yeah. I overcame it because I discovered acting and drama.
I was going to say, unless your act consists entirely of mime.
Yeah. Which actually, I'm a very good mime artist. I'm not even joking.
Right on. I'll tell you what, though, I did see you once, a performance of yours, a very special performance, where I don't think we actually got to hear you speak. So tell us about Eileen Wuornos. The serial killer.
Oh, you saw that?
I saw that. Yes, I did.
Oh my God! Well, that's awesome.
You should have gotten the Oscar, not that hack. What's her name?
Oh, that's too kind. Yeah, I was cast in a television show, and it was all about true crimes. And so I was cast as Eileen Wuornos, the first female serial killer, and she was the first female to ever get executed.
Right, yeah. What was that like? What's that like? Just, I wonder, because you know what? I mean, I watched plenty of, as South Park calls it, informative murder porn in my time. Just, what was the process like of shooting that? And what do you do to get into character? And do those people who helped you with that ever, did they run and hide?
Actually, it's funny because one of the guys that I had to murder in the show was a little scared of me. But I studied her a lot. I watched a couple of documentary films that she was in, and then I actually watched Charlize Theron's performance, and I thought she did a fantastic performance.
Yeah.
And I just tried to understand. I didn't view her as an enemy. I really just empathized with her. Like, she had a horrible childhood. She didn't trust people. There were reasons why she didn't trust people. And as an actor, if you don't like the character that you're playing, you're not going to do that character justice, and it won't be an authentic performance. And I really empathized with her. I felt I could understand why she did the things that she did. It doesn't justify the fact that she was killing men, but I could understand where she was coming from. That was her way of, she communicated through violence. She was terrified.
It's, a really sad case. And again, you did a great job.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
So there's two things I want to talk about here, as far as not your birth chart necessarily, but transits that are coming up.
Okay.
For the last 3 years, transiting Pluto has been trying your midheaven. Now, the midheaven is a point in your birth chart that has a lot to do with your work, but in a broader sense, it's kind of, I like to refer to it as the inner voice that asks what you want to be when you grow up, no matter what age you are.
Huh. Interesting.
Now, with the trine from Pluto to that, there's probably been a whole lot of evolving going on there. But what's interesting about this is that at the tail end of 2019, early 2020, there is a Saturn-Pluto conjunction happening in a close trine to your midheaven. It's on top of your Jupiter and your North Node. So let me ask you, off the top of your head, what are you working on now or in the near future that could quite possibly be the thing that makes your career explode all over the place like a hamster in a microwave, in a good way, in 2019, 2020?
Well, I'm always working on stuff. That's the thing about being an actor and a performer and a writer, and is that you're always finishing one project and working on another. So something I've always wanted to do and never really had the opportunity to do that I'm working on it now is I'm really trying to get into writing for television.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's for the past almost year, that's really what I've been focusing on.
Okay.
And there's been a couple of opportunities coming my way. Of course, they're all dependent on government grants and things like that, because when you're in television or film, it's all dependent upon funding. And so it's just trying to get that funding.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't get it. Right now the project I'm working on, they're giving out 40 grants and there's 289 projects vying for those grants.
Okay. Well, then this is this is the point in the interview where we put in the plug for Joyology. Tell us about that. Tell us about that. Tell us why it's so awesome and what people can do to help. How's that?
Okay. Thank you. So Joyology is actually a project that I've been working on for the past 9 months. We actually got the grant previous, but the woman that was in charge of the money took it and did something else with it. So now we're trying it one more time with a new name. It had a different name before, and a new woman in charge, which is myself.
Okay.
And so you can go on and vote. The easiest way to vote is storyhive.com. You have until this Friday at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time to vote. You can vote once per day per device. So if you've got 5 devices, you can actually vote 5 times, and it's called Joyology. So you go to the digital shorts edition and find Joyology and vote. And it takes literally 2 seconds to vote.
Well, then I definitely got to get this podcast out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Wait a second. What day is it now? Where am I? Okay. We'll do that. Don't worry, and I'll be posting a link with everything and so on and so forth. So anyway, and the funny thing is, I think you understand this. I think anyone who actually writes for a living understands it, is that if someone says, so what are you doing, or what are you going to be, I want to write more for television or something like that, I think you understand that there is, it's like if your kid comes to you and says, when I grow up, I want to be a writer. It's almost like that's wonderful. Why not a doctor or a lawyer or something instead that makes money? But nonetheless, like I said, you've got this great stuff coming up. You're already doing great. Really big stuff coming up for end of 2019 into early 2020. I could go on. There's just one last thing I want to ask about here.
Okay.
And the transits to the two most important parts of your chart for, let's say, success. 3 parts. I could go into detail, but you don't want your date, time, and place of birth out there, and God, neither do I. I do this for a living, and neither do I. But there are two very distinct things here in your birth chart that, if I went into further detail, someone would be able to figure out where, when, and how you were born. Maybe not how. I assume that it was along the lines of the usual procedure. Two things. First of all, that career boom is coming. But secondly, and I only met you once, but I actually was thinking about you about 3 weeks ago when I was getting a new picture taken for photo ID. And there's some very interesting stuff here with the condition of your ascendant, which rules physical appearance, and the condition of the ruler of your ascendant. Spoiler alert, it's Sagittarius. Let me ask you, when you're sitting down, you're getting government ID and they're checking off, okay, what's your height, blah, 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 what's your weight, blah, 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 eye color, pause. Tell us about that.
How did you know that?
Well, because even though I was half-cut drunk at the time, I did remember there was something going on there. But it's also in the birth chart. There's some very... What is that? Okay, well, tell us about your eye color.
I have gold eyes. My eyes are like golden yellow.
It's extremely... You noticed it's rare, I guess.
Yeah.
But secondly, I know when I met you, I was trying to think of something. It occurred to me the next day. Doc Savage. Are you familiar with Doc Savage, the 20s and 30s pulp adventure character?
I am not.
Okay. Doc Savage has those colored eyes.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know what that means. I mean, do you have a secret office in the Empire State Building and do you fight evil in your spare time? I don't know.
I don't know, but I guess I am sort of like, people have told me I do have superpowers, just the fact that I'm able to overcome so many things.
Well, yeah, and it is a surprisingly bulletproof birth chart that way. Don't go around testing it, but you know what I mean.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's see, I took it easy on you in the interview. I didn't ask any really hard questions, like, where were you on the night of March 4th?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, where were you? Never mind, none of my business. Anyway, it was great talking to you. We're going to get the interview out as soon as possible and pump up the Joyology.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun.
It was.
Yay! Yeah.
And now, I really enjoyed that. I do recommend picking up the book. I'm about halfway through it now. It's the Chem Ho. That's CHEM-Ho. It actually is, as far as tales of surviving cancer go, it's pretty damn funny. Oh, and you may have noticed that at the bottom of the page where you're listening to this, or somewhere under it anyway, there is a link to click on where Ali's new project, Joyology, can compete and get some funding to be made. It's really worth clicking on. You're actually allowed 5 votes a day, so clicking once, that's good. Clicking 5 times, much better. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. Next week there will be more astrology and, who knows, quite possibly another special guest. Make sure you write me for a copy of the free ebook, 12 Signs of Love, and information on getting a reading. The email address is astrologyshow@gmail.com. Drop by my new website, still under construction, mcastrology.com. And until next time, and as always, remember, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what sign you are, whoever or whatever. Good night, Susan. I love you.